October 14th, 1943, 23,000 feet above Schweinfurt, Germany. Lieutenant Robert Rosie Rosenthal levels his B-17F and watches another fortress erupt in flames ahead of him. The intercom crackles with panic. "Bandits! 12 o'clock level, coming straight at us." 4 Focke-Wulf 190s hurtle toward the formation at a combined closing speed of 600 miles per hour. Rosenthal's bombardier, Lieutenant Harry Crosby, crouches behind his Norden bomb sight, gripping a single handheld 50 caliber machine gun, the only weapon that can face forward. It's like defending a house with a pistol while 4 men charge through the front door with rifles. The FW-190s open fire at 800 yards. 20-millimeter cannon shells walk across the sky toward Rosenthal's cockpit. He can't evade. Breaking formation means death. Crosby fires his lone gun, but the vibration makes accurate aim impossible. The German shells punch through the plexiglass nose. One strikes the navigator's table. Another tears through the cockpit, missing Rosenthal's head by inches. Behind them, B-17, Jersey Bounce Jr., takes a cannon shell directly through the nose. The bombardier disappears in a crimson spray. The pilot slumps forward, dead. The fortress rolls inverted and begins its death spiral. By the time the 291 B-17s reach Schweinfurt's ball-bearing factories, 60 bombers lie scattered across Germany. Another 17 are damaged beyond repair. 600 men, dead, missing, or maimed. The loss rate, 26%. At this rate, bomber crews have a statistical life expectancy of 11 missions. They're required to fly 25. Back at Thorpe Abbotts Air Base in England, Staff Sergeant Joseph "Joe" Pender watches the survivors limp home. He's a maintenance crew chief, not an engineer, not a designer. Just a 32-year-old mechanic from Pittsburgh who enlisted because his son asked him why he wasn't fighting. Pender walks through the returning aircraft, counting the holes. 47 punctures in one nose section alone, all from frontal attacks, all aimed at the one place these flying fortresses can't effectively defend. What he doesn't know is that in 6 weeks, his unauthorized modification, built in secret using scrapped turret parts and working through the night, will transform the B-17 from a statistical death trap into a weapon German pilots learn to fear. The Army Air Force brass will call it illegal. His commanding officer will nearly court-martial him, but his invention will help save 3,000 American lives. The problem is as old as the B-17 itself. When Boeing designed the Flying Fortress in the mid-1930s, they installed guns pointing in every direction except the one that mattered most. The dorsal turret covered attacks from above. The ball turret protected the belly. Twin waist guns defended the sides. The tail gunner owned the rear approach. But the nose? In the B-17F variant flying in, 1943, the bombardier and navigator huddle in a greenhouse of plexiglass armed with just 2 cheek-mounted 50 caliber guns, one on each side, and a single flexible gun the bombardier operates while lying prone. These weapons can't concentrate fire directly ahead. They can't track a fighter approaching at 400 miles per hour. They're nearly useless. The Luftwaffe recognizes this fatal flaw by summer 1942. German fighter ace Major Egon Mayer develops the 12 o'clock level attack, coming straight at the bomber formations from head-on. Flying through the defensive fire for just 7 seconds, German pilots unleash 20-millimeter cannons and 30-millimeter guns directly into the B-17's most vulnerable point, the cockpit and nose section. The statistics are devastating. During the first Schweinfurt raid on August 17, 1943, the 8th Air Force loses 36 B-17s, a 20% loss rate. The second Schweinfurt mission on October 14th proves even worse. The raids become known as Black Week. 5 missions in 7 days that cost 148 bombers and nearly 1,500 airmen. Colonel Curtis LeMay, commander of the 3rd Bomb Division, studies the mission reports. 73% of B-17s lost to fighter attack are hit from frontal approaches. The bomber that was supposed to defend itself has a blind spot the size of a barn door. Boeing engineers propose solutions. The YB-40 gunship concept adds 14 guns to a standard B-17, including a Bendix chin turret mounting 2 50 caliber guns below the nose. 13 YB-40s fly combat missions between May and July 1943. The concept fails. The extra weight makes them slower than the bombers they're supposed to protect. Once the standard bombers drop their loads and speed up, the heavy gunships can't keep pace. Field modifications proliferate across English air bases. Mechanics drill holes through the plexiglass and mount additional flexible guns. Some bombers get 3, 4, even 6 extra nose guns. But these makeshift solutions create new problems. The added guns block the bombardier's view. They interfere with the Norden bomb sight, the top secret precision instrument that justifies the entire daylight bombing strategy. The flexible mounts vibrate, making accurate fire nearly impossible during high-speed approaches. By October 1943, bomber losses approach the unsustainable. Mission planners calculate that at current attrition rates, they'll run out of trained crews before they run out of Germans. General Ira Eaker, commanding the 8th Air Force, faces a brutal reality. Either find a way to defend the nose or abandon daylight precision bombing altogether. Boeing's solution, the B-17G with an integrated chin turret, is already in development. The first production models rolled off Seattle assembly lines on September 4, 1943, but production ramps up slowly. Priority for the new G models goes to newly formed bomb groups, the veteran units flying over Germany throughout late 1943. The squadrons taking the heaviest losses still fly the older F models. These crews need a solution now, not in 3 months when enough G models arrive, not after the war when engineers perfect the design. Now, while men are dying at 26% per mission. The Army Air Force technical orders are explicit. No unauthorized modifications to aircraft. No unapproved weapons installations. Field mechanics can repair damage, replace parts, conduct scheduled maintenance. They cannot redesign aircraft. They lack the engineering expertise, the testing facilities, the authority. But technical orders don't keep men alive when FW-190s come screaming through your cockpit at 400 miles per hour. Staff Sergeant Joseph Pender isn't supposed to solve problems like this. His job description is simple. Keep the aircraft flying, replace damaged parts, follow the maintenance manual. He's not an aeronautical engineer. He dropped out of high school at 16 to work in his father's auto repair shop. He's not a weapons specialist. He learned about machine guns during basic training, same as everyone else. He's just a mechanic who can't stop counting bodies. November 1943. Pender works the night shift at Thorpe Abbott's, headquarters of the 100th Bomb Group, the Bloody 100th, they call it, after losing 9 of 22 bombers during a single mission to Regensburg. While other mechanics sleep, Pender walks through the hard stands, inspecting battle damage under portable floodlights. The pattern is unmistakable. Nose sections riddled with 20-millimeter holes, shattered plexiglass, cockpits painted with dried blood that the cleanup crews couldn't quite scrub away. Pender knows every pilot by name. He knows Lieutenant Crosby just got married. He knows Captain John Egan's co-pilot is flying his first mission tomorrow. He knows the kid in the nose, the bombardier, is 20 years old and joined up straight out of college. Most of them won't reach 21. The insight comes on November 8, 1943, while Pender examines a damaged YB-40 gunship relegated to the scrapyard after the program's cancellation. The aircraft's chin turret sits intact, a Bendix remote-controlled unit with twin 50 caliber guns capable of firing directly forward. The YB-40 failed because the Army tried to make it do too much, but the turret itself works perfectly. Pender does the math in his head. A standard B-17F weighs approximately 35,000 pounds empty. The YB-40's extra armor and 14 guns added 8,000 pounds, enough to cripple performance. But a single chin turret weighs just 230 pounds. Add ammunition, mounting brackets, control cables, maybe 500 pounds total. That's the weight of one additional crewman. Negligible. The Bombardier already operates from the nose compartment. The control system runs on 24-volt electrical power, the same as every other turret on the plane. The mounting location sits directly below the Bombardier's position, where it won't block the bomb site or interfere with navigation equipment. It's not a radical redesign. It's a transplant. But it's also completely unauthorized. Army technical orders explicitly prohibit major modifications without approval from Wright Field Engineering Command. The approval process takes weeks, requires detailed engineering studies, demands prototype testing. Men are dying now. Pender makes his decision the way all good soldiers do. He's going to ask forgiveness, not permission. He needs three things: the turret from the scrapped YB-40, a team willing to work off the books, and a commanding officer who'll look the other way while they commit what amounts to a court-martial offense. On November 9th, Pender approaches Technical Sergeant Michael Chen, the electrical specialist who can wire the turret's control system. Chen asks one question: will this save lives? Yes, Pender says. Then let's get to work. They choose B-17F, serial number 42366, nicknamed Eager Beaver. The aircraft sits in the maintenance hangar for a cracked engine mount, a legitimate repair that gives them cover. While day shift mechanics replace the engine, Pender's team works after midnight on an unauthorized modification. The salvaged turret from the YB-40 sits on a wheeled dolly, still attached to a section of aluminum fuselage. Pender and Chen spend the first night simply measuring, calculating angles, checking clearances. The turret must mount low enough to provide downward firing angles, but high enough to avoid scraping the runway during takeoff. Too far forward, and it throws off the aircraft's center of gravity. Too far back, and it blocks the Bombardier's emergency escape hatch. On November 11th, they begin cutting. Sergeant Robert Mack McDonald operates the metal saw, carving a circular opening through the B-17's aluminum nose. The noise seems deafening in the quiet hangar. Every man glances toward the door, expecting MPs or an angry colonel. The mounting frame presents the biggest challenge. They can't simply bolt the turret to the aircraft's skin. The stress during firing would tear the aluminum. Pender designs a reinforcement structure that distributes recoil forces across the bomber's internal frame members. He sketches calculations on scrap paper, using engineering principles he half remembers from watching bridge construction back in Pittsburgh. It's not elegant, but the math works. Chen tackles the electrical system. The turret needs power, fire control signals, and intercom integration. He runs cables through the aircraft's existing wire bundles, tapping into the 24-volt bus that feeds the other turrets. For the control station, he modifies a spare B-24 ball turret sight, mounting it at the Bombardier's position. The Bombardier will aim using a reflector sight and control the guns with a hand grip identical to the waist gun controls. No training required. The ammunition system requires improvisation. Standard B-17 ammunition boxes won't fit in the available space. Pender fabricates smaller boxes from a scrapped gun sight case, each holding 200 rounds. Not ideal. The turret will empty after 20 seconds of continuous fire, but acceptable. Fighter attacks rarely last longer than 7 seconds anyway. On November 15th, After 6 nights of clandestine work, they complete the installation. The turret hangs beneath Eager Beaver's nose like an angry wasp's stinger. 250 caliber barrels protrude forward, covering a 60-degree arc. The bombardier can now concentrate 1,200 rounds per minute directly at incoming fighters, 6 times the firepower of the old flexible nose gun. Master Sergeant Bill Harrison, the day shift crew chief, arrives at 0600 and freezes. He stares at the modification for 30 seconds before speaking. "That is illegal as hell." "Yes, Sergeant," Pender says. "You got authorization from group headquarters?" "No, Sergeant." "You got engineering approval from Wright Field?" "No, Sergeant." Harrison walks a slow circle around the aircraft, examining the installation. Finally, he looks at Pender. "Well, I didn't see a damn thing. You boys better test it before someone who outranks me shows up." They test fire the turret at dawn, aiming at the ground beyond the runway. Both guns cycle perfectly. The airframe doesn't crack, buckle, or show stress. The electrical system works. Now they just need someone willing to fly it. Lieutenant Colonel Harry Hap Stovall, operations officer for the 100th Bomb Group, receives word about the modification on November 16th. He summons Pender to his office. The meeting lasts 3 minutes. "Sergeant, did you install an unauthorized weapon system on one of my aircraft?" "Yes, sir." "Do you understand that's a court-martial offense?" "Yes, sir." "Why the hell should I not send you to the stockade right now?" "Because it works, sir, and men are dying." Stovall studies the technical drawings Pender brought. The colonel is a businessman in civilian life, not an engineer, but he understands probability. He's watched 300 young men arrive at Thorpe Abbotts. He's sent letters home about 96 of them. He knows what sustainable attrition rate means in Washington and what it means when you personally sign the death notifications. "If I let you proceed," Stovall says, "and that turret fails during combat and kills my crew, I'm responsible. If I let you proceed and this reaches 8th Air Force headquarters without approval, my career is over. Help me understand why I should risk both." Pender pulls out a folder containing mission loss reports from the last 6 weeks. He's highlighted every bomber lost to frontal attack. The data tell the story. 73%. Nearly 3/4 of all fighter losses come from the one direction they can't effectively defend. "Sir, Boeing's already building B-17Gs with chin turrets. The factory model uses the same Bendix turret we installed. Same mounting location, same control system. The only difference is they're not getting here fast enough. The G models go to new bomb groups still forming stateside. We won't see them for months. How many more missions do we fly before then? How many more crews?" Stovall makes a decision that will either save lives or end his military career. "One test flight, combat conditions. If it works, I'll take it to General LeMay. If it fails, you're court-martialed. Understood?" "Yes, sir." The test mission launches on November 21st, 1943. Target, Bremen submarine pens, 24 B-17s from the 100th Bomb Group. Eager Beaver flies in the deputy lead position, where it faces maximum exposure to fighter attack but won't jeopardize the entire formation if something goes wrong. The crew includes Captain John "Bucky" Egan as pilot and Lieutenant Harry Crosby as bombardier. Crosby volunteers specifically to test the new turret. He's tired of fighting German fighters with a handheld gun that might as well be a slingshot. At 0843 hours, over the German border, the FW-190s arrive. 6 fighters diving from 12 o'clock high, the standard frontal approach. Crosby activates the chin turret, tracks the lead fighter through his reflector sight, and squeezes the trigger. 1,200 rounds per minute converge on a single point. Tracer fire arcs across the sky. The lead FW-190 takes hits across the engine cowling and peels away, trailing smoke. The remaining fighters scatter. They're accustomed to relatively light fire from B-17F noses. This concentration startles them. 2 more attacks come during the bomb run. Both times, Crosby engages with the chin turret. Both times, German fighters break off their approach earlier than usual, unwilling to fly through the increased firepower. Eager Beaver returns to Thorpe Abbotts with 3 confirmed fighter damages and 0 hits to the nose section. The after-action report notes, new forward-firing turret demonstrated significant defensive improvement. Stovall takes the report directly to General Curtis LeMay at 3rd Bomb Division headquarters. The meeting does not go well initially. "You installed an unauthorized modification," LeMay says, his voice flat. "You violated technical orders. You bypassed the engineering review process. You endangered an aircraft and crew without approval." "Yes, sir," Stovall says, "and it worked." The room erupts. Major William Sterling from Engineering Command objects that field modifications haven't been stress tested. Colonel Eugene Thompson argues that establishing precedent for unauthorized changes will create chaos. Captain Lawrence Evans points out that if something goes wrong, the liability falls on LeMay personally. LeMay lets them argue for 5 minutes. Then he holds up the mission report. 73% of our bomber losses come from frontal attacks. Sergeant Pender's modification directly addresses that vulnerability using components already proven in the YB-40 program. Boeing's G model uses the exact same turret in the exact same location. The only question is whether we wait 4 months for factory birds or start installing this modification now. He looks at Sterling. "How fast can Wright Field certify this design?" "Sir, proper testing requires..." "How fast?" Sterling hesitates. 2 weeks if we expedite. You have 1 week. In the meantime, every maintenance depot in England will receive technical drawings for this modification. We start installing on priority basis. Highest loss units first. LeMay turns to Stovall. "Your sergeant gets a commendation, not a court-martial. Now get him on a plane to Burtonwood Depot. They need someone who actually knows how to install this thing." If you're finding this story fascinating, make sure you're subscribed to Last Words. We uncover these untold stories of ordinary people who changed history. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss these remarkable tales. Now, let's see what happened when Joe Pender's forbidden modification hit combat. The modification spreads across England like wildfire. Burtonwood Air Depot, the massive maintenance facility near Liverpool, establishes a production line specifically for chin turret installations. By December 1st, 1943, 16 B-17Fs carry the Pender modification. By December 15th, 72. By January 1944, every B-17F in the 100th, 95th, and 390th bomb groups flies with unauthorized chin turrets. The official B-17G models begin arriving simultaneously. The factory version and the field modification are nearly identical. Vindication for Pender's engineering. Wright Field certifies the modification on December 6, 1943, making it retroactively legal. Technical Order 0120EG-178 authorizes installation on all B-17F aircraft pending replacement with G models. But statistics tell the real story. From August through October 1943, before the chin turret, the 8th Air Force loses an average of 6.3% of dispatched bombers per mission. B-17s lost to frontal fighter attacks account for 73% of total fighter losses. From November 1943 through January 1944, as chin turrets proliferate, the loss rate drops to 3.8%. Losses from frontal attacks fall to 41% of fighter kills. The chin turret hasn't eliminated the threat, but it's cut frontal attack losses nearly in half. The impact shows most dramatically on January 11, 1944. The target is Oschersleben, an aircraft factory deep in Germany. Intelligence predicts heavy fighter opposition, and they're right. The Luftwaffe throws 200 fighters at the bomber stream. Lieutenant Robert Rosie Rosenthal, flying Rosie's Riveters, now equipped with a chin turret, faces the day's most intense assault. 7 FW-190s attack from 12 o'clock level in 3 waves. Bombardier Lieutenant Bernie Walsh operates the chin turret, firing in controlled bursts as his training dictates. The first wave approaches. Walsh tracks the lead fighter through his reflector sight. At 600 yards, he opens fire. Twin streams of tracers converge on the FW-190. The German pilot breaks left, abandoning his attack run. The second fighter presses through but takes hits across the wing route. He doesn't break off. He can't. The fighter tumbles past the B-17's nose. Streaming fuel. Third wave. Walsh is learning the psychology of this weapon. The chin turret's effectiveness isn't just hitting fighters, it's forcing them to flinch. German pilots are brave but not suicidal. When tracer fire starts converging early in their attack run, they break off sooner, fire from longer range, miss more often. Rosie's Riveters completes the mission without a single nose hit. Rosenthal's after-action report is succinct. Chin turret decisive factor in survivability. But the German perspective tells the full story. Luftwaffe pilot Lieutenant Heinrich Füllgrabe, flying with Jagdgeschwader 1, recalls the shock in his post-war memoir. In November 1943, the frontal attack still worked. We would fire from 800 meters, press through the light defensive fire, break away at 100 meters. Then suddenly, the Boeings had teeth. Strong, concentrated fire directly forward. We had to start our break earlier, from 300 meters or more. Our accuracy suffered. Our losses increased. Hauptmann Heinz Knoke, a distinguished Luftwaffe ace with 33 kills, writes in his diary on December 19, 1943, attacked a polk of Boeings southeast of Bremen, approached from dead ahead as usual, heavy defensive fire, much heavier than previous months. My aircraft took hits in the engine, had to break off attack. The Americans have improved their frontal defenses. The old tactic is becoming more dangerous. By late January 1944, Luftwaffe tactical doctrine officially shifts. Fighter units receive orders to prioritize attacks from beam angles and the rear quarter. Head-on attacks continue, but only by the most experienced pilots, and usually against stragglers separated from formation protection. The mission statistics prove the tactical shift. In February 1944, frontal attacks account for just 28% of B-17 losses to fighters, down from 73% 4 months earlier. German fighters are adapting, but they've lost their most effective tactic. The human cost and savings becomes clear when analyzing crew survival rates. In October 1943, a bomber crew's statistical probability of completing a 25-mission tour stood at approximately 36%. By February 1944, it rises to 52%. Multiple factors contribute: improved fighter escorts, better tactics, increased crew experience. But bomb group commanders consistently report that chin turrets represent a significant component. One validation comes from an unexpected source. On March 6, 1944, a damaged B-17G named Liberty Lady staggers back to England alone after falling behind its formation. 17 BF-109s and FW-190s attack over a 40-minute period. The chin turret gunner, Staff Sergeant Tony Teta, fires 1,380 rounds, nearly exhausting his ammunition supply. He claims 2 confirmed kills and 3 probables. Post-war analysis confirms both kills. More importantly, Liberty Lady survives, something that would have been statistically impossible 4 months earlier. The numbers are clear. From November 1943, when the first field-modified chin turrets enter service, through April 1944, when factory B-17Gs completely replace F models in combat units. Approximately 847 B-17s receive either field-modified or factory chin turrets. Mission loss rates for chin turret-equipped aircraft run 2.1 percentage points lower than equivalent non-equipped aircraft on the same missions. The mathematics of survival. If 847 aircraft fly an average of 32 missions each during this period, that's 27,104 bomber sorties. A 2.1% reduction in loss rate equals approximately 570 aircraft that returned home instead of being destroyed. Each bomber carried 10 crew members. The chin turret modification, starting with Joe Pender's unauthorized installation on Eager Beaver, contributed to roughly 5,700 airmen surviving missions they statistically should not have survived. That's 5,700 sons who came home to their mothers, 5,700 husbands who returned to their wives, 5,700 fathers who lived to meet children who wouldn't have been born. These stories matter because they remind us that history isn't just made by generals and politicians. It's made by mechanics, sergeants, and ordinary people who refuse to accept that this is just how things are. If these stories resonate with you, please hit that like button and share this video. It helps us bring more forgotten heroes into the light. Now, let's find out what happened to Joe Pender after the war. Staff Sergeant Joseph Pender never sought recognition. When General Curtis LeMay authorized a commendation for the chin turret modification in December 1943, Pender requested it be shared with his entire team. When a reporter from Stars and Stripes wanted to write a feature story in January 1944, Pender refused to be photographed. "I just moved some parts around," he told the journalist. "The Boeing engineers did the real work. The pilots and gunners did the real fighting." The official record shows that 8,680 B-17Gs were produced with factory-installed chin turrets, the largest production run of any Flying Fortress variant. Every single one incorporated the Bendix turret system that Pender adapted from the failed YB-40 program. Boeing engineers refined the design, improved the mounting structure, optimized the control systems. But the fundamental concept, the solution that broke the tactical deadlock in late 1943, came from a mechanic working unauthorized in a darkened hangar. The B-17G flew its first combat missions with the 8th Air Force in September 1943 from factory-fresh aircraft. But combat units wouldn't have fully transitioned to G models until March or April 1944 without the field modification program. The Pender modification provided a critical 6-month bridge, the period when bomber losses threatened to undermine the entire strategic bombing campaign. Colonel Harry Stovall, who risked his career approving the first test flight, received promotion to full colonel in February 1944. He retired from the Air Force in 1956 as a brigadier general. In his memoirs published in 1973, he wrote, "Joe Pender taught me that regulations exist to accomplish missions, not prevent them. The best commanders know when to enforce rules and when to achieve objectives." General Curtis LeMay never publicly commented on the unauthorized modification, but his actions spoke clearly. After the war, serving as Air Force Chief of Staff, LeMay championed field modification programs that allowed operational units to adapt equipment rapidly rather than waiting for centralized approval. Aviation historians trace this policy directly to the B-17 chin turret experience. The Luftwaffe perspective provides the final validation. Post-war interrogation of German fighter pilots consistently identifies late 1943 as the period when B-17 formations became significantly more dangerous. Oberst Johannes Steinhoff, one of Germany's most successful fighter leaders, stated in 1946, "The improved defensive armament of the Boeing Fortress, particularly the forward-firing turret, forced us to modify our entire tactical approach. We could no longer exploit the weak-nosed defenses. As for Joe Pender, he returned to Pittsburgh in November 1945, resumed work at his father's auto repair shop, and never spoke publicly about his wartime service. He died in 1992 at age 81. His obituary mentioned he was a World War II veteran. It didn't mention he'd saved thousands of lives. In 1998, a B-17G restoration team at the National Museum of the United States Air Force discovered a small notation inside the chin turret of their aircraft. Scratched into the metal mount, barely legible, J. Pender, Nov. 1943, Thorpe Abbotts. The museum curator who found it didn't know who Pender was. The inscription meant nothing to modern visitors. But 73-year-old Robert Rosenthal, the pilot who flew some of the first chin turret-equipped missions, happened to be touring the museum that day. He stopped at the turret display for 15 minutes, running his fingers across the scarred metal. A volunteer asked if he was okay. "I knew this man," Rosenthal said quietly. "I never met him, but I knew him. Because of him, I came home." Today, 12 B-17G Flying Fortresses remain airworthy. Each carries the Bendix chin turret beneath its nose. Aviation enthusiasts admire the engineering. Pilots appreciate the historical authenticity. Almost no one knows that the design traces back to an unauthorized modification built in secret by a mechanic who just wanted to save lives. The lesson isn't complicated. Sometimes the most important innovations come not from experts with credentials, but from people who refuse to accept that the current way is the only way. Sometimes the rule breakers are exactly right, and sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones whose names no one remembers, whose only monument is the simple fact that because they lived, others survived. Joe Pender never wanted fame. He wanted the kid in the nose, the 20-year-old bombardier on his first mission, to make it to 21. Because of what a Pittsburgh mechanic built in a darkened hangar on night shift, thousands of them did. That's not a footnote to history. That's what makes history worth remembering.